Hi, my name is Mark Taylor. Welcome to Mark D Maker. Today, we're going to be making a resin cast with a bee in it and installing it into a sword. Inside of the hilt of the sword or in the pommel of the sword. Let me show you how we're going to do it. Here's my bee. It's a carpenter bee. He died from natural causes, I guess. I didn't kill him. So here's the tools I'm using. I got a couple small cups. What I do is took just a little shot cup that had measurements on it. Filled it up to 1 ounce. Marked that on the cup so I know where I have some disposable cups with measurements on them. Stir stick, this catalyst and the hardening resin. Some tweezers to place the bee. All right, so I'm using this clear casting resin. I have 1 ounce there, and this thing says 5 drops per ounce. So we'll count off 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're going to mix it up. Very thoroughly scraping the sides, scraping the bottom, trying not to get too many air bubbles in it. And this is what I'm going to use to cast this cup. Take my time, pour it nice and slow. Okay, it's been about 15 minutes. So I'm going to take the bee gently. This is a little dried out. And place him into the gel. And it is holding him. Let's see if I can move you in closer here. Take the camera mount off. And he is suspended. This is a new batch, another ounce I did. 4 drops. The first batch got 5 drops. This batch gets 4 drops because of the residual heat from this is going to heat this as well. And all the bubbles are gone from this. So I'm gently going to pour this on top of the second layer. So there he is down in there. The instructions were very accurate. Right at about 15 minutes, it got very thick, but you could still put something in there. Worked out really well. Okay, so this is cured overnight. I let this cure. And the plastic cups that I use to put the resin in am actually melted. So that's not a good idea. I'm either going to have to get paper cups or silicone cups designed specifically for resin. But it did come out somewhat. There's a little bit of, I don't know if this is a fracture or air bubbles or what, especially around the body and the back and off this wing. I'm going to see if I can sand this, maybe make it to where the bee is going to be head on. I'd planned on kind of, doing it like this. But I may have to make them more head-on because of the flaws. It's just kind of distracting looking here. So I'm going to sand it, clean it up a little bit. Let's see what happens. right, so here's the bee. It looks pretty cool from head on. I'm shooting into my backyard, so this will be backlit so you can see it a little better. This is a lot of sanding, and then polished it with the jeweler's rouge. Now you can see the back had some sort of, back here and off of this wing, had some sort of a chemical reaction or something. I'm not sure what caused that. You can see it doesn't look all that great. So I was going to use it like in this orientation, but I just don't like the way this looks. And so, you know, this is the shape of the cup that I put it in. I put it on the bandsaw and cut off, making sure not to cut any of the bee. And then did a lot of sanding. That orientation looks pretty cool. So I'm gonna go with that. So I'm gonna project an image of a sword on here. I'm gonna use the sword roughly the shape and size of the Hobbit sword, the Sting. All right, I've been working on this pattern. There are all kinds of free patterns for different types of swords and daggers on the internet. If you do not have an overhead projector, and that's what I did, I took the pattern, put it on an overhead projector, shined it on this paper, and traced it. I will cut it out, then I'll cut it out in an oversized shape, fold it in half so I can get this identical on both sides. I'll be able to unfold the length and it'll be symmetrical. If you have the opportunity to buy an overhead projector, they're a little expensive in the $200 range, but they are so worth it. I've made so many signs. Projects like this, just sell one or two of those projects and it'll pay for itself. And then you'll have it for the rest of your life. All right, here's the pattern. I have it cut out, and you can see the fold right down the middle. So I folded it after I cut it out and then cut it out closer to the lines to give it symmetry so it's even on both sides. And I took it a little further in here on the pattern just because I like the way that looked. The hilt is going to be a separate piece. So the hilt's right there. And I'm going to make this bigger because this is where the bee is going to be mounted in here somewhere. So I'm going to make this bigger to accommodate this. And I'm going to trim this down so it'll fit in an area relatively. I really don't want to put it into the handle. I think it'll look better on the hilt. All right, coming along. All right, so these are 1/4 inch poplar. I cut them so they're just larger on both sides, and gives me a little bit of extra room to move the pattern either way. We will put some glue on this bad boy. These silicone brushes are real nice. This is actually a cooking one, cooking silicone basting brush, but it works for glue. And the glue literally just, you just let it dry on there, you don't have to wash it off, and it peels right off. Kind of satisfying actually to peel it off. Put them together. Now there's a technique when you glue things to rub them together like this. It's an old school technique, but you can feel it actually tightening up and creating a tighter bond by moving it back and forth, one on top of the other like that. And I'll clamp it right to the table. All right, so I got my wood glued together here, and I taped with this really skinny masking tape. Actually use it for making lines. But I have the pattern taped on. Now usually what I do is Super 77 by 3M. It's awesome. I would just spray the pattern separately, let it come to attack and press it on. But I'm going to use this pattern again for a foam sword, which I will do coming up soon. So I'll do the same sword but in foam, like cosplay. Alright, so I have it taped. I'm going to trace it and then cut it out on the bandsaw. Alright, so the sword is traced on here. Next step is to take it to the saw. So I got the sword all cut out on the bandsaw, and I've drawn lines, center lines down the center. So what I did is put a mark up here, put a mark down here in the center, a ruler, and connected them. It could be just any kind of a straight edge. Same on this side. Drew in where the hilt is going to go and where I want to insert the resin bee in there. Did a little work on this guy and made him a lot smaller so you can see, hopefully he'll fit into that spot. I may have to do a little bit more work on the sides because it doesn't leave a lot of room here for strength. Now this is going to hang on the wall and I'm not going to be swinging it around, so it should be okay. But I'm going to see how small I can make the bee to be able to fit in here without interrupting the structure, stability of this piece of wood. I will be sanding from this line to this line, from that line to that line. Now to get this line, looks like it would be a bear, but it's really easy. You find the center in one spot, and the center is right there, and you let your finger right along and just drag that pencil, and you can find the center all the way down here. Just a matter of minutes. You'll have nice straight line where the edge of the blade is going to come together. So it's going to be the thickest right there in the middle and then come to the sharp edge. Alright, so we got a hole drilled in where I want to install the cast resin. I can insert this blade on the scroll saw through this hole. So I'll take the tension off, loosen the blade. This is what I love about scroll saws. You can get those inside cuts. Put the blade back in its holder, tighten it back up, nice and tight. Not too bad. It's so long I couldn't pass it back here in the back of the throat, so I had to kind of jockey around with it a little bit, but we got it. So loosen the tension. Open the blade. There we go. All right, so I've done a little bit more sanding. Opened up this space here and did a little bit more work on the bee. I'll show you how the bee does fit right in here now. And that's right where the hilt is. So now I'm going to use some JB Weld made for wood to tighten up this area, mold the bee so it's stable and strong in there. So I'll mix this up really good. Mix that up until it's a uniform color. And it'll be extremely strong. Stronger than the wood. I'm trying to leave the back section of this open so I can get some light to shine through and backlight it a little bit. It makes it more visible. Otherwise, with a dark background, it's a little hard to see what's going on in there. I will shape this to fit the design of the handle. The handle comes up to a peak right here, so, and then I'll feather it out down this way. Now when I carve realistic decoys, I often will take glass eyes and do kind of the same thing. I will take putty and literally wrap around it. And it usually does a pretty good job of holding it very securely. All right, this resin 2-part epoxy has dried and I've sanded it. It's holding the cast resin in place really well. I've sanded it so it's all uniform and smooth. It's hazy now, but when I put the final sanding and polishing on it, it'll clear up. And now for the handle, because it still feels chunky, I'm going to go in with a knife and carve it. I've been a wood carver for a long time. I'm much more comfortable with a knife than I am a rotary tool. Have better control. And I just have an X-Acto blade, and I'll be going in right in here under the hilt and just kind of taking little bits and pieces. Now if you're new to wood carving, you see how I'm bracing. Never just take a knife and dig it into the wood and try to use brute strength. You get hurt. It's an easy way to get hurt. You want to use leverage. Just like a dental assistant, when they're cleaning your teeth, they're using leverage and bracing their hand to gain control so they don't slip and cut your mouth open. Same thing here. This is called a leverage cut, and this is called a stop cut when you come straight down in and then carve up to it. It's a slow process, but I'm not in any big hurry right now. So I'll just keep working on this and get back to you a little later. All right, so I polished up the bee a little bit, smoothed out the epoxy a little bit, so we're making some progress. The bee actually looks pretty good in there. There's the back side. I'm gonna build up the epoxy on both sides. Now I stuck these on with just super glue, but surrounding them with this epoxy putty, it's going to make it very strong. And like I say, I'm not going to be swinging it around much. It's more of a decorative wall piece. I carved the handle, so you can see I had my center line down here and down here, and I just rounded off from that center line in both directions. I'll sand all this, stay in the dry part, this is dry now, and apply some more over here. I can start to make it more decorative and add edges and stuff. All right, I'll bring you up to date on this. I've taken a Dremel and I've, with just a little round burr bit, and just barely touched it in here to give it this hammered look on both front and back. I left the top smooth just because it makes sense. And I added a little bit of the wood epoxy down here to the pommel just to make it a little more decorative, to give it an edge, to make it a little wider down here. So I'm going to hit it with a little shellac. I will spray some shellac onto the blade, onto the handle to seal it. So I'm using spray paint, and really painting's the easy part as long as you do the masking properly, and that's where all the detail is. and masking and prepping for the paint. So I have this thin tape, and I'm just really taking my time here with this thin tape and trying to get it as close as possible. And with this thin tape, it's a little bit more flexible. And then I'll come back with blue painter's tape and put over top of that.
This is my spray booth. It's starting to rain in my spray booth.
I'm starting to feel like a quick change artist. But the truth is that this project took me about a week and a half to do. So what I'm gonna do for the blade is I painted it silver. Once I sealed it, after I sealed it, I painted it with silver, and it showed me all the imperfections, bumps and dips in the blade. So I filled it in with wood putty, and then I'm gonna use a trick that I learned from Adam Savage, watching his videos. Foil tape. This is used for air conditioning ductwork to seal it, but it's aluminum and it has reflective qualities. It'll look pretty nice. So I will use that on the blade, but the blade does have to be flat and smooth. Otherwise, everywhere where there's a dip or a bump, it's going to show. It's going to be exaggerated because of the shiny surface. Got the foil on the blade and on the handle. So I just cut the aluminum tape into strips. Now it does take a little doing bending it. So you pull it tight when you bend it. But it's coming along. Alright, I've completed the foil tape on the blade. I've added some texture down here on the pommel. I added foil tape and some little rhinestones around the bee. So if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time.